What's up, grinders? Welcome back to the channel. I need all of your assistance. I need you to help me answer a question. This question will have a massive impact on my Dreaming Spanish series. Now, previously, for those who don't know, I have a series which will be over here somewhere for you guys to go check out, where I am learning Spanish using the Dreaming Spanish method, which is a implementation of the automatic language growth method, okay, to learn a language, because I am curious to see, can you really just learn a language via pure comprehensible input, okay? That's what I am testing with this series. Now, originally I was saying with the ALG method, but in my recent videos, you guys voted for me to follow the DS method, and I'm not sure what to call it apart from the DS method. It's kind of like an implementation of the ALG, but it's also kind of not. So I'm just going to call it the DS or the pure input method. Anyway, so we've answered that question. I'm going to be following the DS method, but there's one last sticking question, one that I need an answer for, because I am rapidly approaching 1,000 hours, and at 1,000 hours, I'm going to start practice speaking and practice reading, and I need to know what the community wants to see, okay? Like, if I can do this or not, because I think this will actually have a massive long-term impact on whether I get good at Spanish or not, okay? So let me explain. As you see, I'm at 984 hours. Very, very soon, 1,000 hours. When I hit 1,000 hours, I need to start reading and speaking. Now, I'm thinking about how to do this successfully. I don't want to come away as a shit Spanish speaker, okay? But I need to work within the confines of the experiment, and it's been decided as a community that I'm going to follow the DS method. And the DS method says nothing about this, and the ALG method, which it's based upon, does say some stuff about this. So the question is, when I start speaking, according to ALG, what I should do is I should just wait for it to naturally come out, which is not going to happen at 1,000 hours. Like, we would know by now if that was going to happen, if I would just naturally start feeling like I had an inclination to start speaking. I don't really have that inclination, okay? Now, according to DS method, I need to just start speaking, but they don't really clarify how, okay? And obviously, the idea is that you should just jump on with, I guess, tutors and just start talking, just try, start reading, reading will assist with speaking. That's kind of what you see a lot of the comments within the community, although that is different to the ALG method. But I should just start speaking. Now, as kind of a seasoned language learner, someone who's experienced learning other languages, I know that would probably be a really bad idea if I just sit down and just start trying to speak. I can see what's going to happen. I'm probably going to have a pretty bad accent, and my accent is probably going to be heavily influenced by my Esperanto, because Esperanto and Spanish in a lot of ways are quite similar, but Esperanto, it's very distinctive, like the sounds compared to Spanish, and I'm pretty sure it's going to impact, because there are a lot of words that are very similar between the two, but are pronounced different, okay? Like, it's going to badly impact, and then I'm going to walk away with bad Spanish. Okay, like, I'm just going to pronounce the language badly. So how can I get around that? Well, when I'm listening to tutors and stuff, I can try repeating after them, but then I'm going to start falling into kind of almost manual learner territory, which means, like, should I be just sitting there trying to, like, just saying stuff and hoping for the best? Like, how should I approach this? Now, thinking about it from a logical perspective and, based on my previous experience, the smartest thing to do and try to work within the confines of, this experiment would be to pick content from Argentinian speakers, the content, like videos, for example, YouTube videos that I fully understand, turn on the subtitles, listen to them say it, pause, try say it myself, go backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. Now, some people call this shadowing. Some people call this parroting. You could do the same thing with a tutor. They could say something and you repeat after them. But this is a manual process. This is not something that really is acceptable under ALG, from my understanding. But the problem is we don't really know. We've just got kind of references to it. And I'll give you an example, okay? So there's been multiple posts. This one here, shadowing questions. Hi, I'm at 700 hours, about to transition and doing a bit more output, but I'm considering the idea of starting off with shadowing first, which to me is it's a smart idea. If you're not going to, learn the phonetics of the language on a base language level, then shadowing seems to be the next best option, because you listen and you just try to replicate what you're hearing, okay? And they ask about this, and then obviously you're going to get comments in here that will refer back to ALG, and I think this one has the most, okay? So like this one right here, where they reference David Long from ALG. So I want to watch just a little bit of this now with you guys. And then at the end, I want us to make a decision. Now, before we watch this, my personal thoughts are, if we want me to actually be good at, like at the end of this, to have a good Argentinian accent, I believe personally that shadowing is going to be critical. And not just for that, but for actually also producing good quality language. But if I don't do this and I just try to speak, I can see what's going to happen is I'm going to fossilize a lot of really bad mistakes, which is actually quite funny when I say it, because that's kind of what ALG is trying to solve. But I don't believe ALG will solve it by just me randomly trying to speak. Anyway, let's watch some videos. Okay, so here on the right, we have David Long, who was basically the, he taught using ALG for years. Now, I know this is going back to ALG and not Dreaming Spanish, but Dreaming Spanish, from what I can tell, doesn't say anything about, how to start speaking. They just say start.
If you have a definition of shadowing, you can add that. But what I know about it is, say, what you would call, David, parroting, except for on a very systematic and large scale scale. So let's say you choose somebody. This is what I understand from other methods, like say various mass immersion methods. That once you get to the outputting stage, you'll choose someone who's kind of like a language parent or someone you want to mimic, and then you'll listen to a lot of their content, and sometimes, like maybe a little bit every day, 30 minutes or an hour if you're super hardcore, you will try to repeat everything they're saying when you get like a clear recording of them or whatever, a clear YouTube video.
So for example, what I would do, and yes, his definition here is pretty good, is I would listen to Spanish Boost Gaming because I want an Argentinian accent. I would listen to him say stuff and I would just repeat after him. And once I'm able to fully repeat that, quite automated, I'll move on to next sentence. And I would do that for like an hour a day. And that would be technically counted as reading, but it's also output, it's speaking, because you're doing both. Okay, so I'd be practicing reading, but I would also be practicing speaking. But it's not actual speaking, it's just mimicking. But I believe it's actually quite critical to get a good accent. Now let's hear what David's got to say.
Where they're speaking clearly and some not still full speed, but maybe not crazy fast and slurred. And you repeat everything they're saying, trying to repeat everything they're saying as they say it, to match the accent. And they have some really cool setups for this, like really ingenious stuff where...
Okay, I want to jump ahead and I want to hear what David's actually got to say.
Or whatever.
Why?
To try to get as close to that sound, that accent as possible.
Why?
Okay, here. Okay, we have a...
So his simple response is why. Okay, well, I think the reasoning is quite obvious, but let's hear it.
Definition from someone who's done this. Okay, I haven't done it. Shadowing is nothing more than repeating a sentence with a recording immediate after or even simultaneously until you...
Yeah, so this is where people, they differentiate between the terms shadowing and parroting. It doesn't really matter. We get what we're talking about here.
There you go.
Okay.
And Mike says... Okay. Right. Okay.
Good. So all right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Good. So I'm not familiar with it as a learning technique. So my first thing that comes to mind is, why would you want to do that? I know...
I'm actually surprised that he's not aware of it as a learning technique. Like, it's not... Like, it's one commonly spoken about, but anyway.
In listening, that what we call recreation is very, very powerful. And it means that basically when you want... One of the things, our speaking happens so fast, intercommunication.
I would almost say that shadowing is almost a form of like comprehensible output. Like, I know that probably makes no sense, but like you're literally practicing perfect sentences from a native, trying to get them out. But I'm getting sidetracked.
Communication happens so fast. And people generally are trying to bolster their own position with someone else, and they're not really listening, but thinking as the other person's talking about, what am I going to say next?
Yeah.
Responding to keywords and flashpoints and so on. That a very powerful listening technique in communication is recreation. But that means first I've got to hear what you said, and then I say it back so that you know I've heard you.
Okay. So recreation is, I listen to you and I say back what I've heard you say.
Yes, but not in a sense of parroting, but in a sense of
The meaning.
you understand. It slows the conversation way down, but it opens it up to further and
Okay.
deepen. Now,
I'm not sure what this response has in relation to the question. Maybe because David hasn't worked with shadowing before, so he's not sure. But I'm just trying to get to the core of, is shadowing permitted?
for listening, that's
And I get the feeling that it's absolutely not permitted under ALG.
something that is very, very powerful.
David,
For
you had
speaking,
you asked the shadow the people who are talking about shadowing a question, why would you do it? So here's the goal. It imprints perfect grammar, and my vocabulary apparently is
prosody.
not up to par. For at least that sentence, if you do it enough, it helps general ability. The point, and one more definition or a goal. The point is to imitate the pronunciation and intonation by mimicking the native speaker, usually done with an audio recording, blah, 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 accompanying.
Got it.
There you go.
Yeah.
All
All right, I get it.
Yeah.
So if you So let's back up to listening and how much listening is enough.
Okay.
When a child starts speaking in natural language settings, does their brain have all the proper grammar in place yet? Or do you think that's something that works out as they start speaking, they gain more grammar, it deepens and blah, blah, blah?
Definitely the latter.
Right. At the end of the day, though, the grammar they use, is it the grammar they're immersed in or something they've learned in other means?
Immersed in, for sure. Absolutely.
Exactly. Absolutely.
I do want to inject one thing here. Like, I'm just trying, with the video, the purpose is actually to answer the question, should I do shadowing, okay, as part of this series? My thoughts already stated yes, but I also disagree with this statement straight up. Like, kids shadow all the time. Like, you've all had this where you say something and then the kid copies you and you're like, why are you doing that? And they're like, why are you doing that? And you're like, stop it. And they're like, stop it. Like, we feel it's annoying and everything, but it's actually a form of shadowing. Like, they're literally mimicking. And like, we've all had that, like, we've had this as well, where we'll say a word and we're like, oh, should have said that. And then the kid says it and you're like, oh shit, I hope they don't. And like, they keep using it over and over. Like, that's kind of a form of shadowing as well, where they're mimicking you in lots of different ways. So I don't know why we're against that, but anyway.
And that's true for accent, and that's true for not pronunciation.
But of course, a kid does not sit down and then like listen to an audio recording and repeat after it. Like, that is an artificial construct. But still, I don't see why it's a bad thing.
It's true for vocabulary usage, and everything about the language they use.
Yeah.
It all comes from the environment they're in.
Yeah.
Now, teachers can try to impact that.
Mm-hmm. But that's already like, they're already way into the habit and the process. They're
10 years old already.
Yeah.
So I would come back to the idea of whether or not.
Oh, David. Oh, sorry. You go first. Sorry. My bad. Go for it.
There's a lot going on.
Just let go.
I would come back to whether or not this sort of a practice is more efficient somehow than the natural process, because it's not a natural process, that we can say for sure.
Definitely.
And
can I interject something? We're talking about we're comparing to native speakers, right? Things native speakers do. So we know for sure, one, just looking at the way anyone acquires their native language, we know that with input and time, this process will naturally bring you to whatever your input is. So that we know, it takes some time. It's a process, which can be frustrating for.
What I actually find frustrating at the moment is that this question seems so difficult to answer. Like, I get the feeling that David's response is, well, as growing up, kids don't sit there listening to audio recordings and repeating after them, trying to mimic the cadence of speech and the words and the constructs. So we don't do that in ALG. Like, I think that would be, if that's his thoughts, he should just be very clear about that and say that. But also, I don't believe that's true about kids at all. Like, they do, in a way, do this, just not in the manufactured way that an adult would do it. But I want the answer to this damn question to know whether I'm allowed to do it as part of this goddamn challenge.
For us, especially if you're, let's say, 60 years old and you're like, well, how much longer do I have? But we do have cases of native speakers doing shadowing. I know, like, say, people from the hills in Kentucky and West Virginia trying to speak like the guy on the 6 o'clock news. And it's even in some country songs. I learned how to speak like the guy on the 6 o'clock news. There's examples of that.
Well, in Thailand, I could remember going, and I always liked live music. And sometimes you'd get Filipino bands. And there were a few people who would sing. And they'd sing a Thai song. And I couldn't tell they weren't Thai until they came and had a conversation. And vice versa too. I heard some Thai singers in this one band I remember, and they their pronunciation was excellent. The whole song. Invite them over to the table, and they couldn't have a conversation.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So that's one aspect. I think parroting as a rule creates good parroting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it has an impact on language.
So it seems now that is not necessarily for, like, the ALG method is not necessarily for or against it. See, the reason I keep asking this question is because I want to work within the confines of this experiment. And it's hard to define what is, like, actually permitted or not. And not only do I want to work within the confines of this experiment, I actually do want to get good at Spanish. Like, I want to get good at, like, having an Argentinian accent and everything, so that, like, I want to give it the best shot possible. But I don't know, because, like, we're left in this kind of, like, this wild zone, and I feel like shadowing, personally, on a personal level, would make a massive difference to the eventual outcome.
In a natural flow sense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a lot of work. So talking about, you're already investing a lot of time to get the input and then the natural interaction, and then you add the shadowing.
So let's back up a minute. When I first said, well, why would you do it? Usually these things are made up either out of an idea, and I don't know how deep the thought goes, or let's try this. Okay. But I'd like to back up to, well, what are we trying to fix here? So if I can, through listening, get everything I need in my brain to speak fluently, then in order to start speaking, what have I got to do? Now I know I can get everything I need in my head from listening.
Right.
That's how it gets in. Watching and listening, understanding, that gives me the whole thing.
Right. So
what do I need to use it?
Yeah.
What do I need to do to use it?
Correct.
And
why we're here today is to talk about that, right?
What are we fixing?
Yeah.
Well, right. So for me, that's the logic that I would use. And I don't think.
So it seems like overall he doesn't see the value in it, and therefore you shouldn't use it. But it's not like you can't use it. Like, this is so frustrating. Like, I've dived into this constantly. I've read different posts by different people on this matter, okay? And it's like, some people who follow ALG are like, no, don't do shadowing. Like, it's definitely not part of it. It's not what children do, whatnot. And then others are like, yeah, no, shadowing's fine. And then obviously I'm now moving towards more the DS implementation of ALG, okay? Which is just by doing the DS implementation of ALG, and I start speaking in 1,000 hours, I'm already kind of breaking away from ALG in a lot of ways. But I still want to try and keep as close as I can to it. Like, try keep... I don't know, guys. Let me know down in the comment section, should I do shadowing as part of this challenge? I'll tell you the reasons we should and the reasons we shouldn't. The reason we should is, I personally believe, based on my experience, okay, that doing shadowing will be one of those things that will actually help me eventually attain good cadence within speech, good pronunciation, and even formatting sentences quite well, okay? the reasons I shouldn't do it are literally just challenge reasons. Most people might reject me saying I haven't done Dreaming Spanish properly or I haven't done ALG properly because I implemented shadowing. And I think what people say will really depend on how well I get at Spanish at the end. So if I get good at Spanish at the end, people are going to say, yeah, look, he got good by using ALG. But then people are going to be like, well, he used shadowing and that's not ALG, so he didn't really. So I don't know what to do. I need help as a community, and I feel like I'm going to put this one on you guys to answer down in the comments section. That way I can just say it's your fault. It's all your fault. By the way, if you like my videos, sub to the channel. See you all in the next video.